Perfect. On that note, 2:03, we like to get started on time here. So thank you everybody for coming. I'm really appreciative. I'm very excited today because we're going to talk to a star of the industry, I think, and a friend of mine, Kira Ferber, VP of ESG at Universal Music Group. What's up, Kira? Welcome to the Beekly.
Hi, great to be here.
This is like I'll be Amy Poehler and you be Fred Armisen, and we'll have a good hang.
I
And that's
haven't
what
heard
we're,
that one yet. I'm excited for
yeah.
that one. Yeah.
She won like a Golden Globe or like the first podcast
Oh,
Golden Globe
yeah, that's right.
was Amy, but like NPR lost and The Daily lost, but Amy Poehler and her comedian friends won. Um, that's okay. Not required listening. Where I want to start is talk about your background as a lawyer coming into ESG. And I think what's interesting is if I've got the dates right, you were a lawyer until about 2021, when started your own sort of consulting practice in ESG, joined UMG about 2 years ago in 2024. 5 years ago, when you were a lawyer, sustainability was not really yet a legal problem. And it evolved into one over the period of the last 5 years in a bigger way, I think. Can you just talk about like how your background as a lawyer has been a filter for how you've done sustainability work in that whole period of time?
Sure. So backing up, I was a lawyer at a firm called Cravathwaite and Moore, which forces you to kind of rotate through different departments. So I started in the M&A department, and then I rotated into the corporate governance department. And in M&A, in like 2018 when I was there, um, increasingly there was like ESG related due diligence as part of normal pre-deal due diligence, but it wasn't really a must-have. It was kind of a nice to have. But by the time I rotated into corporate governance, it had really reached kind of a fever pitch, and investors were really demanding more transparency, and clients were really excited about it. Clients really wanted to put out voluntary reports to keep their customers and their other stakeholders engaged and, aware of what they were up to. So even though I was a securities lawyer looking at, or drafting public filings, um, under like a mandatory scheme, increasingly voluntary reporting was just 100%, part of the job. Um, and at that time, most people at my firm were like, what is this? This is boring, or this is, too granola. They wanted to work on like big deals. And I was like, I love this stuff. I think it's super interesting. I'll take all of the ESG work you can give me. So I just kind of loaded up on an all-I-could-eat buffet of ESG disclosure. And I think being a lawyer and working on SEC filings trains you to think of it much more from a risk perspective, and thinking about like what risks, not just, are potential investors interested in hearing about, but what risks are we posing to the business by making certain claims or failing to make certain disclosures or being actually upfront and honest about everything we're doing. And so that lens, even though, SEC requirements have not come to fruition the way we expected a couple years ago, it's still part of how I approach public disclosure, in everything, not just in our, mandatory reporting.
So it's just about communicating risk to people. I feel like that's language that conferences and all of your peers have started using in the last year or two. Like actually, post election, everyone just switched right into this is risk management, and like that became the narrative. But I think maybe
It's
it's because you were a lawyer, which is not a very like a lot of people in this world. They entered through sustainability advisory or through finance or investor relations or some other practices. Maybe because you is it because you came through legal that you always thought more in terms of risk?
I think so. It's so funny to hear you say people made that switch because I never wasn't there, and it's always been, I think it kind of depends on what your background is, right? Like a lot of people kind of came at it from more of like a aspirational point of view. And I think it's wonderful to have, like lofty ambitions. But if you can't support it with what you're actually doing, that's a problem. Not just from a disclosure standpoint, but from kind of an integrity point too. So yeah, I think it's great that there's kind of been more of a back to basics. Why are we saying what we're saying? Why are we doing what we're doing? And let's like be honest about it.
Yeah. Speaking of lofty and aspirational goals, let's talk about Universal Music Group.
Yeah.
Tell me about what the state of the sustainability or the ESG program was 2 years ago when you joined. And then I want to talk a little bit about where it's gone. Like 2024, you're interviewing, you're thinking about going there. What was the conversation or the need at UMG at the time?
Sure. I didn't really have a traditional interview process, I think. So UMG is a really special place. I love it so much. But it is a true Frankenstein's monster of M&A. I think people think of Universal Music Group as being LA based, which is true. We have a huge Santa Monica office, even though I'm here in New York. Um, but our legal domicile is the Netherlands. We're a Dutch company, and we also operate in 60 different countries, and we're subject to all kinds of law, including CSRD. So back in the spring of 2024, um, I got a call saying that they were looking for someone to do CSRD reporting, which I had kind of, I mean, nobody had done it yet because it wasn't
It wasn't a thing
required.
yet. There was nothing to do
Nobody
yet.
had
Yeah.
done it. Um, but I definitely had started doing, DMAs that were aligned with it and was pretty familiar with the requirements. And when I joined, it was just an all hands on deck sprint. I finally,
So you joined like in the middle of like, CSRD is sort of
yeah,
then like, was there a middle of a process or here's the series of steps and here's
yeah,
joining
yeah,
at
yeah.
step 4 of 7? Or was it like, thank God you're here. What are we gonna do?
I am so glad you asked this. I think it gets at a big misconception about CSRD, which is that, or any reporting process, not just CSRD, because I know that's not applicable to everybody. But I think any disclosure process, you expect it's going to be really sequential and be like, oh, yes, we finished, work stream A onto work stream B. And the world just doesn't work that way. And data, if you've never collected it before, really doesn't necessarily work that way. And your DMA might not work that way if you're subject to CSRD. So I think when I joined, UMG was they had completed a double materiality assessment, um, but it wasn't necessarily the most up-to-date thing, and it wasn't necessarily done, ticking and tying in a way that I would have done it. I mean, that's the nature of coming into a job, right? You're like, oh, this is what you're working with. Um, and so it was very much joining, midstream and kind of ironing things out and figuring out like this is what we're working with. How do we, get across the finish line from here? Yeah.
Is having been a European domiciled company where all of these the zeitgeist was just different for longer. And in the US in 2024, maybe we all thought we were ahead of the rest of the world. But whatever, like having been a European company, do you think the culture of UMG allowed you to act differently or do things differently than if you had joined the exact same company as an American company? Would there have been practices that were different? Would there have been established governance practices that were more advanced or less advanced? But what would have been different if UMG was a pure American company?
So I think one of the things that makes UMG really unique is it's not just a question of like Dutch influence versus US influence, but it's, each label has their own identity and personality and set of priorities. And then our offices, I mean, we have Santa Monica, we have people in Nashville, we have people here, in New York. So everybody comes from things at a very different perspective. And then globally, we're reporting in France. We're working with people in Japan. I'm working with people in Australia. And so there's constantly, you have to be cognizant of um, cross-cultural communication. And I think because it's so dramatically different between different places, it's a good reminder that you have to do it. Whereas if you're all based in the US, maybe there are more subtle uh, differences that you wouldn't necessarily think of because you're like, oh, well, we all speak the same language. So, like, we're good to go. And it is something I'm constantly reminded of. From like a disclosure point of view, I mean, I think that UMG's sustainability strategy would be the same no matter what, because our stakeholders are our stakeholders. We wouldn't necessarily be required to report, certain data points that were required by EU law to report. But I do think internally we're, doing what we think is best for all of our stakeholders. And I don't really think that changes, regardless of where we
Well,
are.
when we were prepping for this, you kind of talked about this three pillared strategy to sustainability. I think you
Yeah,
talked
yeah,
about decarbonization, handprints, and
yeah.
compliance. Can you, and maybe that's a good way to also very quickly, what does UMG do to the extent that people don't know? But like talking
Yeah.
about decarbonization, handprints, and compliance, what
Yeah.
do those three pillars mean? Because that was more eloquently put than what most people
Yeah,
do, which
I
is
love how you phrase it.
there's a law.
Handprint.
We
Yeah.
I mean, handprints is nice. Most people are like, there's a law. We got to do something. You're like, no,
Yeah.
no, we have three parts to this, and they work together nicely.
Yeah, so we have three pillars of our overarching sustainability strategy. The first is reduce our carbon footprint, reduce our footprint. Um, I think we're similar to companies across all industries that are interested in this, in that respect, right? We want to decarbonize. Um, Number two, we want to enhance our handprint. What does that mean? This piece is very unique to UMG. We're not like other companies. UMG's, mission is to shape culture through the power of music. And so we think we have a really special opportunity with climate work to, partner with artists who are already interested or gaining interest in sustainability to kind of amplify change. And shape culture um, for the better. The third piece is the tell our story piece, which is all comms, mandatory comms like CSRD reporting, more exciting comms
Like the Beekly.
like the Beekly, anything with the
There's
Beekly.
such things.
Events, activations, if we're doing the Grammys and we're having a big party, are we factoring in sustainability? We have a store, we have a Universal Music store in New York City. Are we bringing in sustainable merch? How are we telling our story? And those things obviously all tie together too. But that's sort of how we piece it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk a little more about that. I think one of the things I always like digging into is the uniqueness of companies and what one company can do that no other company can
Yeah.
possibly emulate. But hopefully, there's something still to learn from. So you said even in the beginning, decarbonization, reducing our footprint, important, just like every other company. But the
Yeah.
way in which we do that is different. One thing you talk about on every panel you've ever been on, pretty much, is you really only do things that your musicians, that your
Yeah.
artists want to do. And if nobody wants to do anything, then there's nothing you can do. And if your artist wants something, you will do anything possible to serve
Yeah.
the interest and the aspiration of that artist. Talk about that through the maybe the lens of one specific story of an artist or how that matters very uniquely to UMG.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can only sustainability is relevant to us and material to us because it's material to our stakeholders, and our stakeholders are our shareholders, sure, but they're also our artists and our fans and our employees. Um, so yeah, you were playing Billie Eilish earlier, but she's kind of the poster child for sustainability at UMG and how it works. But things really kicked off because she is really passionate about sustainability and is really pushing for things to be as sustainable as possible when she tours, when she records. She has, I went to see her at Madison Square Garden, and there is no single-use plastic. You cannot get it. If you buy her merch, there is no plastic bag to carry it all. And I think she's really challenged the industry to move things forward and to be proactive, which is um, one thing that is great for my team and exciting for my team is that increasingly there are artists who don't necessarily need to be the poster child or need to be like the tip of the spear, but are interested in, having their own sustainable goals and their sustainable vision for their own practices. Yeah.
Yeah, a year or two ago, I heard this woman, Erin Riley, who's the chief, I think, social impact officer of Twilio, on a panel, and she talked about how important it is in determining, and she had a big team doing social impact work and had all this budget, and everyone was very envious. So someone asked her how that worked for you, and she said, "Well, you just need to make money the way your company makes money." Meaning, don't do sustainability as this other thing over
Yeah.
here. Don't do it as this thing that requires everyone to change all their habits, or give you more data for the sake of giving data. If you do it very in line with what your company already does, then it's something that everyone, it's like, it's not complicated in that way, and you don't have to make it complicated. And sometimes it falls to some companies easier than others. Like last week, I talked to Mike Schwartz, who leads sustainability at ChargePoint, it's an electric vehicle charging station. Very straightforward. Make more electric vehicle charging stations. You have a sustainability program. Use fewer conflict minerals. You have a program. But at Twilio, their version of it was they get paid every time a text message gets sent. So how can that line up with social impact? Well, let's let nonprofits send more text messages after a natural disaster, or let's let things go out after some sort of
Mm.
catastrophic event, and Twilio makes some money and sure it's discounted, but it's part of this program and everyone's happy. And it seems like it's the same thing at UMG, which is the way UMG makes money is help artists sell records and sell merch. How
Yeah.
can we do those two things with more sustainability in mind? And
Yeah.
everyone seems on board.
Absolutely. I mean, the way that we thrive as a business is by having artists thrive. We want to attract and retain the best artists in the world. And if artists care about having a platform, we want to have a competitive edge to give them that platform. We want to support them in whatever is interesting to them. We never want to have like a meeting with an artist and, someone hands them a bottle of water made out of plastic, and they're like, how could you, like, what is this? So yeah, it's kind of like core to appealing to artists. And it also is kind of how we approach it from the inside. I mean, it's not on kind of, like you said, like if you are pushing sustainability as like a thing unto itself, it's nobody likes to be forced to eat their vegetables. Um, but if you're interacting authentically with your artists, and helping them, lead with an authentic message, um, that connects to fans, right? Everyone can kind of tell when a celebrity or an artist feels really genuine, and that's really exciting.
How do you? Again, we're prepping the line I took was I talked. Someone said the word cross-functional collaboration, and your line was, "I can talk about cross-functional collaboration till the cows come home."
Really
It's like
can. It
a
really
passion topic
can.
of yours. You really
It
can.
is. It really is. I think CSRD is a forcing function, but any reporting can be a forcing function, to, have you sit down and kind of like work in the trenches with people at your company who you might not necessarily have to, you know, work pretty intensely with otherwise. Um, we we just wrapped our reporting season, and we sent all of our cross-functional partners, little seeds they could plant as a gift. But we to thank them all, and we genuinely mean it though. Like we love them so much. Our partners in it's HR, but we call it people inclusion and culture. Like we could not get our reporting done without them. Our teams, we work with internal controls really closely. And I mean, to what we were saying earlier, these are teams all over the world, right? Who they don't have to answer our emails. They could ignore us. And instead they're kind of, willing and excited and, ready to partner with us. And it's one of my favorite things about my job is getting to work with people.
And is that something? So that's sounds dreamy. A lot of people don't have that. I had a call earlier this morning with a company, decently big, publicly traded, so cares about the reporting,
Yeah.
and this person was talking about how like you just got to be really careful with what you ask for out of any other peers because you only get so many shots
Yeah.
at it. And
Yeah.
that sounded like there's a lot more tension in this person's relationships with their colleagues. And I've heard that a lot. Is this very positive relationship that you have and ability to use your people team to get or work with your people team to get your reporting done and work with the artist team to say, hey, Billy does not get any plastic. Nobody bring any plastic, but Drake loves plastic or whatever. Like working with all these different people and teaching them what they need to know and helping them do their jobs better, but really asking them for help to do your
Yeah.
job better. How much of what you're doing is intentional? Is there a cadence to this work? Is there a rhythm that you set up so they know what to expect? Is there incentives that they're at the governance structure where everyone's like, help Kira and Dylan do this stuff well and you all get a bonus? Like, is there how much of
That would be great. I would
that'd be
love
great.
that.
I'm
Yeah. They
supportive. You got
should
my
get a
vote.
bonus.
They should
I'm
get a
like, I bought
bonus.
them a plant, but like that, like
Should have
definitely
given
not.
them the $3. But how much of like your good relationships with those people are a result of intentional systems that you or the company has set up, and how much is like you got lucky and there's some good eggs in those seats.
Okay, great question. I think part one is my team is just a delight. I'm not talking about myself, but the people on my
The
team,
team of one, the
yeah,
sustainability team of one, love
no,
them.
for more than just one. And the people on my team who are responsible for directly collecting a lot of the data on a global basis ask really nicely and they care about people. I think a lot of sustainability people just tend to be kind of nice and want to, tend to be more empathetic, maybe. Maybe that's just because I worked with a bunch of lawyers beforehand. Um, but yeah, they're genuinely nice people. And so I think other departments are responsive to that. I know it's an obvious one, but um, I do think coming from professional services and kind of having the mentality of, this person in this department is my client. Like they're not they don't work for me. They have a day job. I'm asking them for information and they're giving it to me on time as kind of a courteous thing to do, but they're not going to get a bonus and they're certainly not going to get their pay docked if they don't help me out. So I try to treat them as I would a client if I were still, running my own business. Like don't send them a million emails with a million follow-up questions, right? Treat it like one bite at the apple and really respect their time. But we also do a, pretty clear planning at the jump where, we have a formal kickoff, we'll have training if we need to have training on a certain subject. We'll try to make people aware of what the expectations are for getting everything into us. We'll try to have, appropriate buffer for when things inevitably, go off the rails with our original plans, and kind of keeping things as predictable as possible. Because I think that gives everybody a sense of comfort and, it's a lot easier to work together when you have clarity.
Yeah. If you left this job tomorrow and took over a similar role in another company that didn't have any of this, what would be some of the first few things you set up at this new company that would make your job easier in a year?
Wow. If I didn't have any like cross-functional relationships or if I didn't have any,
Yeah, this company's doing this for the first time. You joined because they're finally at the size that they need reporting and need disclosures
yeah,
and they're all nice folks. They just never had these systems before. They don't like what would be some of those first things that you get done?
I hate that I'm going to say this because I think this is what every like consultant says. Ugh.
Let
Um,
her rip.
20 bucks if you can guess what it is. Um,
Buy Beehive, clearly.
oh, 100%. Yes.
100%. Yeah.
That's the one.
That-
Yes.
no, tell me.
Yeah, quote me on that. I think you do need buy-in from executive leadership and you need some kind of executive level body.
Okay, that's what every consultant says. Totally agree.
Yeah,
Because it is important. You can't just do things on your own. If an
yeah,
executive says it's not a priority, it's not a priority. So I don't think it's the wrong answer just because it's the
yeah.
common
Not just
answer.
the
But like, would
sponsorship,
you
but like the cross-functional executive level committee. Yeah,
and do you actually Dylan Meyer from Braze talked a lot about that too here, where
yeah.
that was the first, I think he's been in the job for about a year. And that's what he said. The first thing he did was he set up this committee and he just like said, you will meet with me once a whatever, some people once a month,
Yeah.
some people once a quarter, and you will bring your own topics to this conversation. And I'll help you organize them, I'll help you pick the topics, but like
Mhm.
you committee members are a part of this. You're not just a receiving party to my words, you are a part of this governance committee that we were
Yeah,
establishing. So I think
yeah,
that like specificity and the bringing other people in is what
yeah.
he, which finds like been doing this a while. I think some people are nervous about that because they don't want to shed the
Mhm.
light. They're like, oh, thank God I still got a job.
Yeah.
Like just happy to be here, happy to be doing sustainability work. But then the more you put yourself on an island, the easier it is to cut the rope.
Yeah, I when I joined, I think sustainability had very much been siloed. It had lived in the finance department and was very compliance focused. And we're still obviously like one of our three pillars is compliance. Um, but we had an executive level steering committee who I think never really were fully briefed on what was going on in a way that made them like engaged. Um, and I had a meeting with them like 2 weeks ago, and it is like astonishing to me how much more engaged they are. I mean, now that we've been through the CSRD process twice, they're very engaged. But it's like thinking back to when I first joined, and they're all kind of like, "What is this? What are we doing here?" As compared to now, where they're like, "Oh yes," and they're using all the lingo. They're like asking me about the DMA, and I'm like, "Who taught this to you guys? Like, you're like
So
fully,
proud.
yeah, yeah." They're fully like in the expertise weeds now, which I am really proud of it. I'm like, oh, we have like a fully invested group of people in this, which is really exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. I know this is easier said than done, but my advice, having seen this from a lot of people, is if you find yourself putting yourself on an island because you're afraid of bothering people,
Yeah,
that's could keep your job for a little longer, but like it will cause problems later on. Take the
totally.
swing at bringing everyone along. And if you get pushback, if the company fully rejects you, well, all right,
Yeah.
maybe it's a virus that wasn't meant to stick. But like you will, like you have to bring those people along.
I mean, lucky for UMG, I am massively annoying, and I am happy to bother people who are way too busy to be bothered. So, yeah, so
There you
far,
go.
good. Yeah.
Really quick, everyone, I just want to remind you all the Q&A is open, the chat is open, so feel free to drop in questions. I also want to post really quickly. We did this fun thing. We sent out postcards to a few hundred companies, directed at a bunch of executives there, showing them what their exposure of their headquarters is to various natural disasters. The postcards seem to be a hit, so we're opening that up. So I just sent a post. If you want a postcard sent to you with your HQ shown with your like natural disaster likelihood in that area, you can sign up there and it's free and fun.
Oh, that's
Um,
fun. I don't think we
which is
got
fun.
one.
Not yet. Maybe it's coming.
Okay.
Well, you already, I know. It's the people I didn't know. So you guys sign up there. I'll send you a postcard. Um, where I want to kind of talk about the tools you use, the partners that are really influential to you to get all this work done. This is not Google or Microsoft where there's 30 people on your team doing 30 different jobs. I think Google actually probably has 100, and you do a lot with relatively few resources. The way I want to broach this topic is actually, if I may, tell the story of how we met
I would love that. Our meet
because it cracks me up every time our meet cute. It was really sweet. So I'm at Greenbiz 2024 maybe, and I was standing on the lawn on happy hour, hanging out with our friend Shira from Verizon, and up walks this woman named Kira, who I'd never met before, and we're standing there and talking. And Shira kind of knew what I did, and Akira did not. We shake hands, we introduce ourselves, we're having a nice time, we're drinking, we're chatting, we're smiling, we're laughing, talking mostly not about work. Somehow work comes up. Akira still doesn't know what I do. And you go, you know what? I really just wish there was some sort of like climate risk software that could tell me my financial, my physical risks and my transition risks and do it for me quickly and do it for a good price. And I wish that existed. And Shira said, well, have you met Adriel? And then Kira, like terrified, goes, no, you're a vendor? As if I offended her with my presence just by being around. And I love that. Now that we're been known each other for a little while, but with that context, the context of being afraid that a vendor, God forbid, might have tried to sell you something, you are like allergic to sales. Um, what is helpful to you in
Yeah.
terms of the technology you use, in terms of the partners who are essential to you? How do you get one of the largest companies in the world and the most global companies in the world, aligned with jurisdictions and disclosure regimes all over the world, doing this work with relatively few resources?
Let me tell you, it is not easy. We're also really weird. We have no obvious structure, like legal structure that you could draw from memory. Like it is very confusing and very complex. A true Frankenstein's monster of M&A. So most um, most systems that work for a lot of other companies that people absolutely love and, recommend to us just don't fit with us. Things need to be either, super tailored and local to the, jurisdiction, um, or very customizable. We just, we're transitioning to a new GHG accounting platform. Um, and I won't say which one because this is not their webinar. Um, but that process of vetting vendors was really intense for my poor team. They were, we interviewed everybody. And it wasn't really like an obvious case of having a winner. And it's not always as with so many other things in sustainability, it's like weighing different options, and kind of like having the least worst choice in some circumstances.
Is
Uh,
that how you think of us? Just everyone out there is just the least worst in their industry. What in that carbon accounting example,
yeah,
what are the when you go out looking for someone externally, what are like the stipulations? What is the process? You say, hey, colleagues, I think we need a new
yeah,
carbon accounting vendor or
yeah.
product around tracking regulation or whatever. Are you like writing out specs and then going out to the market? Are you saying, well, I think I met this person before. Let's just kind of take demos occasionally to continue to know what's out there. What's your
Yeah.
process to staying on top of
Um,
technology?
my process is when we identify a gap, um, first we have to like, like any company, it's like, what is our budget to fill this gap? Do we have budget to fill this gap? Is it on a temporary basis? Is it on a permanent basis? For a big product like carbon accounting, when is the best time to start implementation for something like this? Our contracting process at UMG is painfully long sometimes. So, if we were going to switch providers and we have our, reporting cycle coming up, like it's just not going to fly, right? We have to like plan things out. That can be really painful. Um, so, like, what is the gap? Can it be filled? When do we have to fill it by? And then who are the best? Do they fit our very weird, constraints a lot of the time? I always ask for referrals from other people with my same job at other places because that's who I trust because they know, the pain. Um, I am allergic to sales, or like salesy sales. And there have been products that we've ultimately bought that were harder for me to agree to because the process was so um, like slimy in the beginning and it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Everyone should just be hanging out with Shira all the time,
If I
casually.
can find her, if she
Right.
won't let me follow her around town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we were talking about this. We have our offsite this week. My team, we were kind of like casually talking about um, getting, a team member of mine, her personal phone keeps getting blown up. And like, no, I don't want to buy a person's product. I don't want to take a meeting with them. Like, that's like a huge boundary violation. The world is like small enough that we can find you, or you can, get yourself found. But uh, the like over salesiness, maybe um again, because I think people in sustainability tend to be like generally kind of nice and empathetic and eager to connect with people. Like maybe that works, but I personally am just like I can't handle it. Yeah.
It's got to fit the person.
Yeah.
I want to take a question here, and then we'll jump a little more into the specifics of CSRD. And someone asked that you mentioned the passionate stakeholder base that you have at UMG, which is really exciting to hear. My question is about the other side of that. How do you bring along artists who may be less enthused, especially when sustainability goals could affect their revenue or creative autonomy?
Yeah, totally. I mean, Morgan Wallen is one of our artists. I'm not going to say he doesn't want to do sustainability. I'm making assumptions now, but there are plenty of artists who have no interest in this, and they don't have to. We do not push it on anybody. Like, it's not for us to decide who's going to be a leader in this. UMG as a corporation can have decarbonization goals without forcing its artists to go out there and be evangelists. Like, that's so not what we do. That's not how you center artists. That's not how you center free speech. Like that's crazy. Um, it's for artists who are genuinely interested. Like if you have a genuine, authentic connection to this stuff, and truly, we have a global impact team that works beyond just sustainability. It's for any, cause that an artist cares about. UMG wants to support that artist and what they're passionate in. We work for them. Uh, that is the relationship. They are at the absolute center of everything we do.
Yeah. Good answer. Appreciate the question. I want to talk about CSRD for maybe the next 10 minutes here. But a lot of American companies are beginning
Yeah.
to look at it. I think a lot of the timelines are that they will be reporting in 2028 on 2027 data. So maybe you could start off with your perspective on, let's say we're talking about an American company that is, top 20th percentile along. They've done the emissions, maybe they've got some targets, they probably did climate risk, like they've done some of the basics. Where do you think would be some of the more surprising gaps that they have not yet addressed that they would need to in order to be ready for CSRD?
Yeah. So it's going to vary by company. Um, you will not know the answer to this until you're like, it's January and your report is due in March. Like that's when you're going to find it and be like, ah, shit. Um, I think some companies do like a dry run, and I don't think you need to do like a real dry run, but like you should start like kicking around like where are your bodies buried, like which data just doesn't neatly conform. What data is going to be really hard to get past assurance. And the good news is, just because it doesn't like perfectly align with the letter of the regulation doesn't mean you can't still make it fit for purpose. Um, and have justifications for that. And if that's something you're working on, definitely email me because I love having that conversation. Um, but yeah, I think for us, a lot of challenges are, we're all over the world and we report on compensation. Our payroll metrics, are hard to we have to do it jurisdiction by jurisdiction. It is a crazy pain in some respects. Um, so that can be really challenging, but it really depends on like what are your data points that you're reporting on. Yeah.
You said like some data might just be harder to get through assurance. What was it
Yeah.
for you guys? Maybe what was the easiest, like what was like, oh, great. Cool.
I can't
Didn't
tell you
expect that to
that.
go that well.
I can't tell you that.
Fine. Let's
Um,
rephrase that question.
yeah,
If
no, it
you're
was
a
all super
theoretical
easy.
music company based in
Yeah,
Europe,
it's super easy. All of it is super, no, like, it's not necessarily hard to get through assurance. That's the wrong way to put that. If you are a company that's not like publicly traded, maybe your internal controls, and we are publicly traded, but for sustainability information, implementing internal controls in the same year that you're reporting on the data that is governed by those internal controls, you're flying the plane as you build it. And so kind of tightening controls around stuff, doing a dry run is a great way to get a good sense of where you need to like dial up your documentation or like test a little bit more. Oh, question for
can you
Brandon.
talk? Yeah, well, definitely going to jump to Brendan, but one question about that. I get to go first. What what in the process of like setting up those controls or having that documentation, what was newest to you? So what was something that you did have? I know you said
Yeah.
it'll be January, the things due in March, you'll find that out. But in your order of operations, what was one of your things that you did, I won't say last minute, in the later half of getting ready for that work? That was just newer to you.
Yeah. So, um, I mean, in the example I give where it's like, oh, there's data that's like it's there. It's not like the most perfect data that like neatly let me phrase it better. Like Brendan says, is it based in Lumen Industries? You do look like you're in severance right now. It's not so much that the data, there's something inherently wrong about the data. It's that companies don't set themselves up in order to align with regulation, right? So if CSRD requires you to report on certain, to have certain, for example, um, targets, science-based targets, ours are 2032, whereas CSRD is on the zeros and fives, right? Like we don't align with CSRD. Does that make our targets wrong or bad in some way? No, we didn't know about this regulation when we set up our science-based targets. Um, is there a way to get that past audit? Yes, of course. No auditor wants to like ding you for that. But it's a matter of having like an honest conversation and understanding where you're both coming from and documenting it. Um, and I think a big lesson I learned the first go round, and now it holds true after our second CSRD report, is if you can show your homework to your auditor, it will lower their blood pressure substantially, and you can, work together to come to a happy meeting place. But you need to be able to document your reasoning really, really soundly.
Yeah. Um, Brendan asked a question about what was the main driver for UMG setting science-based targets and what might be the hardest hurdle to you meeting those goals.
Great question. Um, they predate me. My understanding was that the company was really excited to kind of draw a line in the sand and hold itself accountable. I would be surprised if the impact of artists like Billy wasn't part of what set all of that in motion in the first place. Um, that was a big driver, was just kind of public accountability. I think that's true for a lot of companies. In terms of hurdles, there are kind of limits. We're doing a formal climate transition plan now. So I'll have a better answer for you in a couple months. But we've already identified, we did some work to like identify our key levers already. And in a lot of places, there are just limits to how far you can go on any given thing. So this isn't a big one, but like for example, physical audio, right? We make records sometimes, and we have to ship records. Sometimes an artist will say, I need to repress all of these records because the song on this doesn't sound right, or the quality on this needs to change, or I want to re-record XYZ, and then you have to air freight it. And that changes the emissions drastically, and it's wildly expensive, and there are all kinds of other reasons not to do it. But fundamentally, like, artists are the center of everything we do. They are always right. We can't, we're not going to say like, no, you can't re-record it because it's bad for the environment. But that's, one kind of example of like where you hit a backstop just based on the nature of the industry.
Yeah. What are examples of things now that you've gone through this process a couple times and you guys are global, so you're subject to Australian law and American law and all these, maybe a Japanese law, every law
Yeah.
UMG is subject to. So if you have questions about anything, call Kira. But what are sort of the next things that you're working on? What's big for you over the coming 12 months that you want to get better at?
Yeah, I mean, offsite week is like the perfect time to be asking this question, but also the worst time to be asking me this question because I'm like a little overwhelmed by how many exciting plans we have. Um, I'm pumped about this climate transition plan work. Like, I think it's going to be really, really good for us to get just really granular about decarbonization. Really exciting things around like the artist engagement side of the house. That's really cool. One thing I really want to do, because we're subject in so many different jurisdictions to so many different regulations. I think it would be helpful to have some kind of forum. And if anyone has ideas about this, please tell me, because time zones make like live meetings kind of tricky. But some kind of forum on a global basis to like have everybody who kind of oversees sustainability or CSR in all of our 60 different countries to have a chance to kind of meet and air their grievances together or support each other or ask for tips. I don't know what that should look like. And yeah, if you know what that looks like, please tell me.
You want to get all the internal UMG people who are responsible for running
Yeah.
compliance things all together.
Yeah. But I mean, for obvious reasons, like Japan, Australia, New York, like scheduling calls is a nightmare. But giving people an opportunity to kind of like understand things together and bring each other along for the ride. Right now, it's like a hub and spoke model where like I monitor the regulation. I like keep tabs on the different jurisdictions to be like, hey, did you know that this is happening? Like, do you have the resources you need? Have you reached out to Beehive to, understand your local risk in Australia, for example? Um, but I think it would be really valuable for them to kind of see each other at the local level and understand, like, oh, it's not just me dealing with this like really annoying regulation in France. It's also, my friend in Australia or my friend in Japan.
Yeah. Um, I want to, in the last couple minutes here, just ask you a maybe unrelated question to all of this,
Sure.
but you do a lot of speaking. You're
I
very
s-
good at it.
um,
You do speak a lot. You talk a lot as well, but you speak like you're at a lot of conferences, and I've told you this very genuinely before. When there's three people on a panel and all are from publicly traded companies, two are fearful and watching their words, and Kira's out there being interesting
I
and
feel
has a
like I'm watching him
perspective.
right now. I'm like, I don't know if I can say this. Yeah.
Well, that's all right. On stage, you're better.
Awesome. Awesome.
No, and well, my question for you is, I know a lot of people think that a lot of people admire you. A lot of people really are impressed by how you speak, how you deliver messages, how eloquent you can be and interesting you can be on a stage. I don't know if you do that intentionally or if that's just you, but if you were to reflect on what you try to be as a speaker, what are some of the things before you get on stage where you say, "This is what I think will make me the best panelist I can be right now"? Because I think you
That
are
is
good at it.
so nice. That is so nice. Thank
I
you.
mean it. People talk a lot about you behind your back and in very positive ways.
That is so kind. Well, it's all gone to my head. Ugh, I think I try to be careful in what I say for sure because I want to protect the company. That is true of everybody. I also want to be honest about what we're actually doing. And it's easy to do that when I like take pride in the work we're doing. Um, to be honest, I think telling the truth, like I kind of can't help myself. Like if someone's asking me a question about CSRD and the answer is like, "Oh yeah, that part of it sucks." Like telling the truth about it, I think is more useful to them than to be like, "Oh yes." Um, I'm genuinely interested in this stuff. Um, yeah. I don't know. You tell me I'm a good speaker and now I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, I think um
Do you
telling
prepare, like tactically, like do you prepare, how much do you prepare before you get on stage? No, it's just, it's all in your heart.
yeah, like I really like this stuff and I really like talking about it and I really like talking about it to people who also like it. Um yeah, that's the
Yeah.
truth. Yeah.
I like it. That's really nice. Well, good job. Keep whatever it's working. It's working. Kira, thank you. You are the best, and thank you. I know it's a busy week, so I really appreciate you doing this. Folks, we do this pretty much every single week. The next three up coming up are BI product training. So if you want to get to know how the product works, we do a deep dive on that. But then after that, I'm very excited talking to Charles Scott at Unity, who is amazing. It's a very large gaming company, and then
Oh, great.
I know, she's so cool. And then Angela Feckerty at Russell Reynolds, which is one of the largest like placement and recruitment companies in the world. And we have some amazing people coming up. So, Kira, thank you. You rock. I appreciate you very much. Thank you all. And we'll hopefully see you next week.
Bye. Thank you.